Hello, and welcome to Archetype Builds. This is a channel where we take an archetype, kind of a paragon of a given playstyle, and we show you how to build that into your Dungeons & Dragons character. Today's build, the Shaman. I'm going to make a note of special inspiration here. World of Warcraft, a game I loved in my youth, apparently back when they had rampant workplace harassment. So there's some soul searching to be done there. Drew deeply on Dungeons & Dragons for inspiration. The creator's been super explicit about that fact. Many of the races, gods, and course classes are based on D&D. Actually, D&D has taken inspiration from WoW as well, basing much of the maligned 4th edition on that MMO. However, something that always seems strange to me is that the classes for these two games don't 100% line up. We have druids, priests, and paladins, hunters or rangers, wizards, and so on, but there's one class from the original WoW's 9 that has no equivalent in 5th edition, and that is the Shaman. So that's our project for today. Perhaps one day I'll get to those hero classes as well. What makes a shaman a shaman? In my opinion, it's 3 things. The shaman derives its power from the elements, specifically fire, air, water, and earth. The shaman channels the elements into spells to both heal, attack, and to buff. And the shaman is well known for its weapon buffs, specifically often utilizing maces with devastating elemental hits. Lastly, though not leastly, totems. This is one of the primary mechanics of the shaman, that place totems on the ground and then buff all allies nearby. Okay, let's see what we can do. So to start off with, you're going to want to balance your wisdom and your strength. Your strength you will be using to hit people with maces. Your wisdom you will be using for spellcasting. Don't neglect your constitution either. I'm going to recommend for our race a water genasi, someone who is literally part elemental themselves. And this is going to give you the bump in the right ability scores that you need. For the first and most important tenet on our list, the casting of elemental spells, there is no better class spell list to choose from than the druids. And start grabbing elemental spells like Earth Tremor, Absorb Elements, Create or Destroy Water, and then maybe pick up a Cure Wounds to be your healing shaman self. Level 2 in Druid, we get our subclass, our Circle, for our Druid. As weird as it seems here, we're going to go with the Shepherd. And the reason we're going to go with the Shepherd is because it gives us the second thing on our important to-do list for the Shaman, which is totems. Now, admittedly, they are phrased as wild animal spirits, but we can easily reflavor these to be totems. They are not structures, not objects, not creatures, but something ephemeral that you place in a spot that radiates some benefit around 30 feet, which is exactly what a totem is in World of Warcraft and for our shamans. And these are pretty great. I'm going to reflavor them a little bit. So we're going to have things like the bear totem, which gives everybody temporary hit points, which I think easily, right, should be an earth totem. The hawk can be the wind totem, so on and so forth. But this is going to give us the ability to be our shaman self, casting elemental spells and placing totems around us to buff our allies. Important caveat, unlike in WoW, this one will only allow you to do 1 totem at a time. So you have to choose what you're putting out there. And in my opinion, the air totem, or the hawk spirit, is much better for like if there's an individual that you want to be doing very well, because its passive ability is to grant advantage to 1 person. I think that's not that great. The earth with the temporary hit points and the water or unicorn spirit with the healing boost are great for, you know, kind of respectively buffing up your party, or if you want to be that restoration figure. The other thing that we're going to get at level 2 is Wild Shape, and this is kind of a bummer, right? Because Druid gives us a lot of the things that we do want for our Shaman, but it also gives us some things that we don't want. And the Wild Shape is much more Druid-y and less Shaman-y. Unless we choose a specific form that we think works for our Shaman and we consistently use this feature for that form. So I'm thinking this is our Ghost Wolf form. Shamans get the Ghost Wolf form pretty early on in WoW, which is just basically a movement speed boost. I think you could absolutely do that here and just choose Wolf consistently. Wolves do have slightly faster movement speed, and you could just be running around as a wolf. Of course, that then it can do things that the Ghost Wolf form wouldn't. But I also think that I like the idea that there is a more like tribal inspired shaman archetype out there, and maybe one day I'll do a kind of a build that's more oriented at like ancestors and ancestor spirits. But that form, oftentimes in folklore and different traditions, shamans who commune with nature can kind of like transform into spirits of those animals. And so I'm glad that it's in there as an option. It definitely treads the line between druid and shaman. At level 3, we're getting our level 2 spells. And so the ones I think are fun here are wind spells. So we've got Warding Wind and Gust of Wind. I think those are pretty great. This is where we're going to have to start making tough decisions. Much like in World of Warcraft, where you are specializing at a certain point, I think that our character can't straddle all three, major tenets of the build indefinitely. So we're gonna have to choose between elemental, enhancement, and restoration. I am going to show you guys a build for elemental because I think that's the most shamany shaman possible. If you want to take your shaman in a much more enhancement direction, you're going to need to start multi-classing, something with an extra attack feature. Ideally, one that doesn't completely rob you of spell slots. So I'd recommend shooting into Ranger pretty soon and taking Ranger all the way up to 5th level to get that extra attack, and then maybe 6th level as well. For the Ranger subclass, I'm just going to advise you here up front. Maybe the Monster Slayer, just kind of reflavoring that as a primal understanding of your opponents, is going to make you particularly good at attacking things with your mace. For Restoration, you're going to choose different spells than I will. Look for healing spells that are available and an option, and you're going to make strong use of that water totem that we already got. But I'm going to take as elemental, and I'm going to kind of push us further in druid to get those elemental spells. Here at level 4, then, most important thing that we're going to need is just that wisdom ASI, right? A lot of our elemental spells have saving throws or attack rolls, and so we want to get our wisdom as high as possible. We're going to bump that to an 18 here for elementals. As the enhancement one goes up, you're going to need to bump your strength to get those weapon hits better. Level 5 on the druid spell list, or if you're multi-classing ranger, you'll also eventually get access to level 3 spells. Grab elemental weapon, and this is that kind of third item on the checklist, right, which is buffing our weapon with some sort of energies. The elemental weapon is going to give it an extra d6 of damage of an elemental type that you choose up front when you hit people with that weapon. Great stuff. You can also get things like Call Lightning to boom, bring down lightning upon your enemies, just like our good old boy Thrall. All right, level 6. This is kind of the penalty that we pay for our really perfect subclass choice. Getting those totems was so fun, but now we are kind of stuck with the Shepherd features. And the Shepherd features are all about summoning and boosting the power of summons. So we're going to get Mighty Summoner here. We don't have any summoning spells currently on our list because we're busy being an elemental shaman that shoots lightning and makes the earth erupt and causes fire to erupt from our hands. So it's not great. I'm going to find a use for this next level, but for now, this is essentially a dead level. You can grab another spell, though. Go ahead and grab Erupting Earth. Erupting Earth is great. It's one of the best AoE spells in the whole game. and it up levels quite nicely. Level 7. Level 7 is going to unlock 4th level spells, and this is where we get to kind of cash in on a couple of the features that we've been building up all along this character. Grab the 4th level spell Conjure Elementals. This is one of those older summoning spells that allowed you to make a trade-off between the quantity of creatures and the challenge rating of those creatures. There is an option to choose 8 challenge rating 1/4 creatures from the Elemental Bestiary list, and there are some perfect ones for this. I'm going to recommend you summon Mephits, Memphits, Mephits, Mephits. I'm going to recommend that you summon either Steam or Mud Mephits. And the reason why is because these guys have 6 hit die each, which is amazing. So when you summon 8 of them, they are going to have approximately 20 health each. The Mud Mephits have more, the Steam Mephits have less, but they have the same number of hit die. Your Mighty Summoner is going to give them 12 hit points each extra, so that's a lot more. And then, bonus action, summon your Earth Totem to give them now 12 temporary hit points. You've more than doubled their overall hit points for all 8 of these creatures. They've gone from kind of annoying to a big problem for your enemies. The Mud Mephits are going to have like a mud breath thing that splashes out and potentially restrains a creature, giving everyone else advantage on their hits. This is really great to use against big targets. You can have one Mephit breathe on him. If he's not restrained, have another one go until he's restrained, and the rest just pummel him, along with your allies, of course. The Steam Mephits have much more damage, and I think they have a little bit more damage per hit, and then they also have a cone breath weapon that does a tiny bit of damage. These guys, I would just have them all blow their breath weapons on the same turn, doing like 8 times a d8 of damage, so like 32 fire damage to everyone in a small area. This is good for just like mowing down small enemies with your Steam Mephits that are, of course, in the 40s of HP. And that's a lot of HP. Even if these guys did nothing other than stand between your opponents and you, that's a lot of damage that gets soaked up. Of course, you could do this, and then when they get sufficiently low, so temporary hit points diminished, some damage dealt to their core hit points, you could swap your Earth for your Water Totem and cast Cure Wounds on one, radiating healing out to everybody else. And this way, each turn, you're generating, double digits of health points for that entire group. I think it's probably more likely that your enemies will focus one down and then another and then another. But especially if you're in some sort of like fight against a bunch of bandits or like a whole squad of gnolls or some other large number of low CR enemy, and this fight breaks out, you could probably solo the encounter with this tactic. If this doesn't fit the fantasy of the shaman for you, I totally understand. I think calling little living embodiments of the elements to your aid in the dozens and making them super powerful is pretty fun. And it's also a really good and powerful combat tactic to pull out when you need it. Also, we're going to get access to multiple 4th level spells. So you can go ahead and add something else to your list like Control Water or Wall of Fire or Stone Shape. For our next level, level 8, we're going to max out our wisdom, just kind of get that taken care of so it's as high as possible. That's going to take us down the home stretch into level 9. And level 9 is going to give us 5th level spells. These are the highest spells that we'll have access to with this particular build. And we are going to get some great options here. Control Winds or Wall of Stone are very powerful, but you know that the shaman in me from World of Warcraft is going to love the Maelstrom spell. Maelstrom, of course, has a big meaning in World of Warcraft lore and becomes the site of the Shaman Order Hall because of the tumult of all of the elements in that region. A very fun callback there. That's just going to take us to our capstone, our level 10 feature. We are going to This is another one of these shepherd features that we, can make some use of. Essentially, whenever a summoned elemental is within the area of our totem, regardless of what we do, it'll heal up for about 5 HP at the end of our turn. So we can keep all these mud mephits out there surrounding us. We have our totem in the center, and as they are getting damaged, they are healing up at the end of our turn. Again, if you do have kind of a battle against a large number of enemies, this is going to be an extreme game changer, right? To keep those guys alive for a long period of time. And that's the shaman. To recap, we are hitting people with our elemental weapon if we want to be. Some of you have chosen to multi-class ranger to get that extra attack so that you're hitting multiple times with your enhanced weapon while still gaining some spell slots. Some of you are restoration, healing allies with the power of your water totem and your cure wounds. Other healing spells available to the druid, kind of boosting people up. And if you have gone like I have, elemental shaman, not only are we controlling, the waters and the stone and the fire around us, we are also summoning armies of elementals to aid us in improving their strength and power. Have fun.